Hi, welcome to the IT Collab podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Barnes, and my co-host,
Nathan Taylor.
and we're here interviewing Matthew Collins. He is a CTO, Chief Architect of many. So today we love having you on, Matthew, what do we call you, Matt or Matthew?
Matthew is fine. I go by either.
Perfect. So tell us a little bit more about yourself, Matthew. Tell us how you got the title Chief Architect.
Chief Architect, self-proclaimed title. For like the last 25 years, I've tried to maintain architect. I appreciate the C-level or VP sort of management title for out there in the business enterprise, but I'm really an architect. I've architected solutions my entire career, and that's what's bringing me joy. That's what I do. So I've always tried to maintain that in my title.
And you and I have known each other for a while, but tell us some of the things you like to architect. What are the technologies you especially are focused on?
So I'm a little bit about myself, where I came from. I was a network architect for many years, on-prem, we would call that today, terrestrial networks. Got my start IBM Global Services, worked my way into that, doing some large networks, sub-enterprise and enterprise, and got to a point where the cloud started to become a thing. I can remember hearing Bill Gates talk about, media and everything being in the cloud, and everything was going to be cloud centric. And I was like, no way, but here we are. And I thought, what's a network guy going to do in the cloud? I'm done. Maybe I should retire, start doing that barbecue business I've always thought about. But turns out there's a need for fundamentals and just basic architecture in the cloud. It was kind of that similar. We talk about, when virtualization became a thing. It was hard to do stuff back when you needed bare metal. You had to have hardware to do stuff. And then virtualization came along, and suddenly there's 200, 300 servers, that are just out there, doing nothing and disorganized. And then the cloud kind of became the same way. You could create infrastructure and workloads just at will. And so there was really a need for that fundamental structure in organization, and solution design that an architect brings. So that became really interesting. And as we get to where we're at today with AI and security, everything delivered as code, it's an exciting time. And it's the fundamentals of the old school guys are still needed.
Yep. The cloud is just somebody else's server, right?
That's it. That's really it. That they'll gladly sell it to you to do whatever you want to do.
They're just leasing their services. It's nice.
So
Matthew, you're originally like a network, more or less, architect, right? Is that kind of your bread and butter, or are you kind of you're great at the AWS and the Azure stack, or anything like that?
I'm a Microsoft guy. Nathan knows that. I drink that Kool-Aid on a daily basis.
That makes three of us.
We can operate. I operate in AWS and GCP, but only as it refers to connectivity back to Azure. So if somebody has a requirement for having a multi-cloud redundancy or something like that, we can certainly expand from Azure into those environments, but those aren't my native.
And I mean, so we talk to our whole goal is to kind of reach business users, right? And so sometimes I get business users asking us, well, what's wrong with AWS, right? And I'm on your boat. I'm an Azure guy. I feel like it's 10 times easier to navigate Azure for me. Why would you, as an architect, appreciate more or less the Microsoft stack over AWS?
That's a good question. I think it's just consistency of environment. One of my favorite quotes is Microsoft's not the biggest ship in the ocean; they are the ocean. And so to me, just dive in. You know, if you're in AWS, if you're in GCP, unless you're doing some sort of a Linux workload, um, you know, stay within that Microsoft platform. Um, the security um, of Microsoft, we've seen by least recent events. It's not totally infallible, but it's just and then the breadth of what you can do within that environment, right? Your limitations are unrestricted, I feel, and so you can move from you know fabric to app design to traditional compute workloads, um, layer security, layer AI, identity. All that is just kind of wrapped. If you look at the big picture, it's just kind of wrapped. It's all there, um, and you're not really some of the challenges in AWS and GCP um, don't exist in the Microsoft and the Azure stack.
Right.
There are new ones. Um, Oftentimes, it's around complexity and um, just maturity of the solution, but eventually it gets there, right?
So the biggest thing I always get asked by maybe a C-level exec when I'm talking about architecting a solution or going through a solution for an AWS, or they're stuck on AWS. They're always telling me it's cheaper to go AWS than Azure. Do you think that's true?
I think it can be true. I think there's more options in Azure, and I think you just have to be conscious of that when you're deploying an Azure solution. I think cost management, um, FinOps, financial operations, should be a part of your discussion and your design. I think if you took an Azure architect and an AWS architect, and they both um, crafted a solution done correctly, I think you'd find your pricing similar.
Yeah, I think they
That's
tend.
yeah.
I think they tend to compete quite a bit on price, right? I mean, in the end, at the root of it, a lot of it's plumbing, right? It's a VM on one, a VM, it's a 4-core, 8 gig of RAM VM. You're going to find they keep pretty close to each other's pricing. They don't want to be outpriced. I think, um, if you're on Microsoft, there's ways to manage that with, reserved instances and Azure Plan and a couple other things. Maybe you have an EA plan, so you get a discount on the EA. I do know that AWS and GCP have a little bit more flexibility at times for large projects to throw cash at it. Microsoft has some options there, but you tend to have to jump through more hoops, whereas AWS and GCP will just buy customers. I've seen that happen in the marketplace. So they'll say, "Oh, you're willing to switch? If you commit to this much money per month, here's a giant bucket of money. Go do it." And so there's some interesting layers there, but in the end, it's all plumbing. I think the UI is much easier to use on Azure than GCP and AWS by a long shot. It's just more intuitive. I've been in both, and especially the GCP UI is just painful at times. So
GCP, the HPI GreenLake. I've been in the room where with a customer and they're traditional. They have an Azure environment, so we're there just as consultative, and they start demonstrating their solutions, and I'm like, you guys should really spend some money on your UI. I think that's also the user experience is also Azure. Microsoft, they pay a lot of attention to that. That user experience and the interface.
So Matthew, I know you've been putting a lot of effort recently into building a solution around Azure Front Door, which I think is a really interesting product. So I'd love you kind of give us like a brain dump on what is Azure Front Door and what is the solution you're building around that, and kind of tell us what you've been building.
So we use Azure Front Door. Actually, that's our company website, and we used Azure Front Door. It's basically for global scaling, global performance. So Azure Front Door, you're able to host your data and your content in multiple regions, and then Azure Front Door is sort of that global load balancer. Um, you know, where's the best performance from the user endpoint into your environment.
So if you've got a
So
website or a Azure service, it's kind of like a CDN, like an old Akamai kind of idea. It gets them on ramped into Microsoft's data centers at their closest, fastest region, but then takes them to your content in your region quicker than if they went direct.
sure, so it on ramps the end user to the closest meet me, that their network's on, um, and then directs your traffic from the closest region that you're hosted in. And so Front Door is a global solution. We do have some clients in Europe, and so we did that as kind of a sandbox test experience. We have some other customers that have disaster recovery and hosting e-discovery in Dublin, India, and so we just needed to be familiar with that. It's a little different. Traffic manager is something if you're kind of isolated to a single geopolitical region, um, you know, to get your application gateways, traditional like load balancers like that.
Sure.
So Front Door is kind of the Azure solution. If you want to be hosted, geopolitically multiple regions.
Got it. Does it work for multiple services? Is it just HTTP only, or can it run on other ports and other services?
It can definitely run on other services. HTTPS is kind of, again, that's where your handshake's going to happen.
Okay.
So from there you can start doing other services.
So do people use it with solutions like maybe AVD? Because AVD is technically tunneling over HTTPS, right? So there's at least a lot of the handshake is.
You can. It's not a direct. So with AVD, you're already using the Microsoft Service Bus, so it's already going to give you the closest on ramp from the client. If you were had your AVD environment, kind of internal to your own Azure environment using private endpoints, then you could certainly leverage Front Door to direct traffic that way.
Got it.
But that would get that would be highly complex, and you'd have to look at what the value of doing that would be.
So to break this down for most business owners or C-level execs or whoever, business people, where does, I know this is obvious and a dumb question but where would this help a business succeed or do better? Or
so if they were looking at expanding into global markets, and they had a large web presence or application that they wanted to serve up on a global market at a global scale, Front Door would handle that initial load balancing, traffic direction, security for them, which traditionally would be a fairly complex build, if you're going to architect that on your own. So, and that's kind of what Microsoft does, right? They take complex solutions and kind of wrap them up into individual packages.
Right. Okay. I like it.
And then some of the stuff that you're building, I know on some of the some of the back end secret sauce you've built. You kind of scripted this out. So what is the normal way to build this out, and kind of what is the secret sauce you built on top of that?
Traditionally, it's people go through the GUI, the portal. They build it out. We're a Microsoft Solutions partner, different designations, different specializations. So today, one of the requirements Microsoft leans into is repeatability and standardization, and so that's where that real infrastructure as code (ISC). So if we want to provide solutions that line up with Microsoft solution plays, IAC is just a thing, right? You have to deliver your solutions with some sort of a component with code that's repeatable. You have to demonstrate that. So code, and then there's a term that's kind of, I'm not sure if it's serious or if it's kind of a joke, but it's your SaaS, your solutions as a service. But there's one there, SaaS, solutions as infrastructure as code. And so we try to internally, we try to understand the solution, and then we try to develop a standardized product around it, right? That solution.
Right.
And the current thought process is every solution begins with a standardized product offering, right? So we have a canned product. Here's a generic front door. Nathan and I have had this conversation. A lot of companies feel that they're unique, and they are, but the technology is the same.
Right. Right.
And so they really, the solutions are standardized, they're repeatable. Right. And then we look at what might be different, front door, AVD, we need a private endpoint. We can't have public access for some sort of compliance reason. And then so we call those customizations. So we really start our solutions with a standardized product offering, that's delivered as code, scripted. And then from there, then we start the sort of a next step discovery process of like, okay, what do you guys need to customize it? And if you think about it, Microsoft is included. We do audits and have to submit solutions for review. And in the last 2 years, something that's kind of snuck in is proof of concept. And so there has to be a proof of concept stage. And so if you think about it, delivering a standardized product as a demo or a proof of concept for the client business owner to kind of kick the tires and see what the technology does. It's automated for us, so it's not a huge effort. Do the POC, we check that box, and then okay, so now you want to put it into production. What customizations do you want to layer on top of that? And it becomes a more interactive kind of process sales cycle, different from traditional where, hey, we want this solution. We go off in the background for a few days, few weeks, and then come back and say, here it is. Let's go. We're done. So it becomes more interactive.
That is kind of like model for most of the products out there nowadays, right? So you have Dynamics, or you have anything like, we'll give you the base, and if you want to customize it, it's going to cost you. I mean, that's like all the ERP systems I think we run into, or CRMs that people build out. It's the same model, right?
Right.
We'll give you that stuff, but people don't get it because they realize like there's not one size fits all, because people always want to tweak it to their needs, and that's the whole point of it. It's not that it's bad, just it might take some investment on their side to build that for them.
Right.
And
exactly. And I think it's a lot of also, that Amazon experience, right? Not AWS, but that clickable transaction. And Microsoft identified, I think last year, that, they want that marketplace moment, as well.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
we're really trying to hop on that. And, so we start with an initial standardized transaction, standardized offer through a transaction, click a button, deploy it to your environment, do your proof of concept, and then let's take it to the next step. Let's customize it. Let's secure it.
Right. So
I think
Matthew, what kind of range of kind of clients do you work with? Do you work with like more the mid market, like existing like bigger companies, or do you usually kind of like work also similarly with like maybe smaller, small business shops?
Right now, most of our clientele is small business. That's kind of the daily run,
Nice.
small, medium business. We do have, I don't know, a fair amount, 10, 20 sub enterprise customers that fit that SMC space. We're trying to move in the direction of that SMC space.
Right.
But really, the idea from what we're trying to develop is solutions that scale both directions, right?
Right.
Again,
Yep.
we can scale them into the SMC, add that complexity and size that they need, but also, enterprise solutions for, architected for the small, medium business. So, and,
Right.
The Azure and Microsoft platform kind of allows you to do that, right? It allows you to create these enterprise scale solutions, but then bring them down to a level that everybody can take advantage of that.
It's really
I feel
true.
like this
It
is.
really is true.
I
So
feel like this is a
wait,
place. Go. Go ahead,
I think
Brandon.
my favorite is when you're trying to help someone with the solution, they always ask you, "How much does it cost?"
Right.
Then you're kind of like, yeah. What do you want to do?
Right.
Right. How much do you want to spend? And so that's kind of it. So if you bring the cost down by repeatability and standardization,
Right.
you open that door up for other people. And then from there, it's like, okay, how much, do you want to do? How much do you want to take it on? You've at least created that base for them to have success, right? They haven't had to kind of have the science project of them spending late nights with Google trying to figure out how to create an architecture or something, So we kind of get them at least started in the right direction. And then, if they want to engage, happy to do that. But yeah, that's always a challenge is, the cost and how much am I going to spend? And there's that threshold you see, right? When you're talking to an SMB and you're hitting an owner's bank account versus, enterprise where you're just trying to get a line item on a budget.
Right.
It's a different concept, different discussion.
Different approval process.
Definitely.
So, as an architect, what would you say if you work more in the small, SMB space, small medium, what would you say is a pretty much a more common thing you have to architect or that's pretty standard across the board?
The big one for SMB that we're seeing is really just that initial, we call it the Azure landing zone,
Right.
Just that initial
Push.
environment, and then security, right?
Yeah.
I think zero trust used to be for, large scale enterprise, sub-enterprise. But I think zero trust is becoming the norm,
Mm-hmm.
and just being able to bring that down to the SMB and the best practices around security. I think that's our biggest request. We also do. It's interesting. I think we're kind of past the initial migration into the cloud. We don't do a lot of on-prem to cloud type migrations.
Yeah.
As far as business applications, right? Email,
Right.
file sharing, that kind of stuff. I think that's more along the lines now of integrating clouds. Like you said, like we've just acquired a company. They're on Google, they're on Amazon, but we're an Azure shop. So how do we integrate those? How do we migrate those? Um, but I think there's a big push for the small business. They've got that server sitting in the closet, or they have a small data center, and it's been there for 5 years. Um, they don't want to do that capex expenditure, and so we can help move those small with Azure AVD or Windows 365, along with some storage, or maybe a simple VM. We can take that workload from on-prem and put it up and secure it, and increase performance pretty cost effectively, into the cloud. So I think there's the opportunity moving forward for small businesses moving their workloads into the cloud. And then as you go up that scale into the SMC, I think you're going to see some rebound where, during pandemic and supply chain issues, a lot of enterprise scaled into the cloud just because that's the only place they could get resources.
Right.
I think you're going to see a little bit of a rebound back into this hybrid model.
I agree.
So it's kind of interesting. So on the SMB, you're going to see that continued data and compute migration into the cloud. And then on the SMC, you're going to see a lot more rebound back into on-prem.
I think I've seen a lot of increase in maybe some changes in their SaaS solutions, I find that, maybe they pick Google, maybe they pick Dropbox, maybe they pick Box. They're like, oh, maybe this isn't just so secure. Maybe they just they wanted to say, put the finger to the Microsoft beast, and then they're kind of turning around going, I need to be secure. I need to be able to pay, have my cybersecurity insurance. We should probably go to Microsoft. So I'm seeing a lot of cloud to cloud migrations kind of pop up. And I agree with you. I think a lot of, maybe some shops with like couple servers are really finding they really don't want to deal with the servers anymore, or
Right.
deal with the noises and the battery backups and the beeping and all the other stuff. And they're kind of like, maybe what would it take for us to move? And that's definitely something that I see a rise in. But you're right too. The hybrid's always an option, especially at run into the architecture firms. I don't know if you've ever architected a solution for architecture firms that always have these massive files, and they want them from home and they want them from here, and it's like, oh,
yeah, it's tough.
That's
we did a project for a large civil engineering company, and they're based in Northern California, but they have they go out to Colorado and New Mexico.
Right.
Same thing, large AutoCAD, big design, GIS maps.
Yeah.
And they want to be able to run that, from home or while they're on the road.
Right.
And so, that was a challenge. But the trick is like, well, what do you want to commit to? I mean, if we move it all up into the cloud, Azure or one of the others, it's a doable situation. But when you're talking about, GPUs and large file sizes, I mean, there's a cost associated with it. But if you start throwing in, it's like, hey, what's your power bill? At your corporate office. You've got these massive storage arrays that you're storing all your data on, and you've got these 10 gig switches to move your files around. What's your cost for that? What are you spending on that? And if you start adding that into your your cost factor of moving all that into the cloud, and then the performance, I think it's doable. But yeah, or they have, I don't know about you, but a lot of them, they're hanging on to that, Windows 10 box.
Yeah.
Because they have files that only run on, AutoCAD that are, 3 versions back. And that's some unique challenges, right? People that have software that they haven't upgraded but they need to maintain it for, financials or whatever.
That drives me nuts. Even the the different, well, I'm on this version. I paid for this version, so we have to keep these versions. So they have I've seen companies, some designers that have, 5-6 different versions of their CAD solutions, and I'm like, and to maintain those and update them are quite substantial. and because
Right.
their customers haven't paid to upgrade or something. I don't. You run
Yeah,
into some situations like that.
we're seeing that. We have this app that we built. It runs on 2008. It won't run on 12 or
Right.
2020, whatever. And it's like we have to maintain 2008. It's like, well, we can't even deploy 2008 now, right?
Yeah.
They're done, and so that's a challenge. At the SMB level, is they seem to be running on versions that aren't
right. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Until it gets hacked or something happens, that's the thing. Well, I know we kind of probably lost, I think, Nathan along the way. I'm not sure what happened to his connection, but I did really want to thank you for coming on, Matthew. We're kind of at our 30-minute mark. And it was a quick conversation. It's like going to lunch, right? Kind of
Yeah.
talking for a while, and next thing you know, it's over.
I hope it was helpful. I hope it made sense.
No, it does. I think that sometimes, especially business owners or whoever's out there needs to know, like, it's not easy architecting solutions, and so be appreciative of, someone like you out there really helping them out and trying to understand it's not as easy as like, oh, give me a cost. You're like, okay. So
yeah, there's an investment in understanding that, right?
yeah.
And we could talk about this for days, but just trying to understand that there's a cost associated with that discovery, right? And so that's kind of like, how do we make that cost effective for everyone? So we're back to that. Hey, here's a proof of concept. Here's a standardized solution. Go deploy that. Pay a nominal fee, monthly charge, and then let's talk about how that would fit, right? And then at least it's productive for everybody, right? And it's cost effective.
Customize it how you want.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, Matthew, I hope we have you on again. Nathan, I know you're back, but just wrapping things up. Just want to make sure we tell our subscribers and our moms, the few people that subscribe, to say thank you. And please don't forget to like and subscribe and do the things that you do. And we'll talk to you next time. Thanks, Matthew.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
See you guys.